something with confidence. It's about trust. And I think Kamala Harris, that those 13 weeks just to be tied, all things considered, she's been building trust. I don't think he's ever run a company where you have to go deal with the fundamental basis of your business. He has no clue. And the worst part is, he doesn't care.
But back in his first administration, I went and talked to him and talked to others about helping with healthcare.
If these tariffs remain in place for multiple years and are enforced, we could face something worse than the 2008 financial crisis. That's a direct quote from Mark Cuban, the billionaire who's built and sold multiple companies and knows a thing or two about economics. In the next 10 minutes, I'll explain exactly why Cuban is sounding alarm bells while Trump's promising economic paradise. The gap between their views is wider than Trump's tie, and understanding it might save your bank account. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Mark Cuban isn't completely against tariffs, which might surprise you given how much he's criticized Trump's plans. He actually thinks they could work in very specific situations. For example, if China's government is funding its steel companies to help them sell cheap steel around the world.
This is, in my mind, the same way. If I can help cut the cost of healthcare in the United States of America, doesn't matter who the president is, whether I like him or dislike him, I'm going to do what I can.
If Donald Trump is elected and he puts these 60% tariffs on Chinese products, they are all going up. All those things you buy are going up.
Trump's plan is tariffs, which,
don't work.
He likens to, or Harris likens to a Trump sales tax.
Right. Targeted tariff might make sense. That kind of precise economic tool could potentially create more American steel manufacturing jobs. It's like using a scalpel to fix one specific problem. But that's where Cuban's agreement with Trump's tariff vision completely falls apart. Instead of a careful scalpel, Trump is swinging a giant economic sledgehammer that's going to hit pretty much everything we buy. Cuban sees Trump's approach as reckless and dangerous. It's the difference between carefully removing one bad tooth and just smashing someone's entire mouth with a hammer because one tooth hurt. The contrast becomes crystal clear when you look at Trump's proposed 200% tariff on John Deere equipment, which Cuban straight up called insane. Think about that number for a second. 200%. That's not a small tax, that's economic destruction. Cuban explained the absurdity by pointing out, put a 200% tariff on the American company moving some production to Mexico. But
can have some work-life balance. And I don't think he's never been in that situation. Not all those people started like Donald Trump with a silver spoon, right? These are people putting their life on the line.
Or most of the things they sell could go up by 60%. And unfortunately, when you raise your prices, again, the Grinch doesn't understand how economics work.
I think Elon's first goal is to reduce the deficit. And one path to reduce the deficit is by the economy declining and contracting.
Tariff Chinese manufacturers 10 or 20% so that the Chinese products will be cheaper to sell in the US than the American company. He's basically saying Trump's plan would punish an iconic American company while actually helping Chinese competitors sell more tractors in America. Make American tractors expensive again. That doesn't sound like a winning slogan, but the real damage might not be to big companies like John Deere. Cuban points out something that gets completely lost in most political discussions about tariffs: the impact on small businesses. Out of roughly 33 million companies in America, only about 21,000 have 500 or more employees. That means almost all American businesses are small operations without giant cash reserves or fancy financial departments to handle sudden cost increases.
In order to, get it fired back up again.
Okay.
And by reducing interest rates, since that's one of the biggest components of the national debt, then you push down the national debt.
You don't think of Donald Trump and say that was really nuanced in what he had to say about this position or his policy. You don't hear him talk in depth about policies at all. I get all that right. So here's kind of the angle I always look at tariffs. I've known Donald Trump 25 years. He used to be okay on trade policy, but over the last 25 years, he's just lost it.
When a neighborhood hardware store or local clothing shop suddenly has to pay 25% more for their inventory because of tariffs, they can't just absorb that cost. They don't have million-dollar profit margins or investors to bail them out. out. They have two choices: raise prices or close down. And honestly, for many of them, it'll probably be both. Raise prices, lose customers, then eventually shut down anyway. All those Main Street businesses Republicans claim to care about, they'd be the first casualties in Trump's tariff war. Cuban also can't help but point out the total hypocrisy of Republicans embracing tariffs. He said, "The Republicans, this is a party that religiously preaches about the importance of lowering taxes. How you going to sit up there and raise and create a tariff war and in the same breath lower taxes?"
Trump is very dogmatic. Tariffs, are a beautiful word, and we're going to have tariffs. They don't go together at all. Something's got to give.
And so a lot of what I love doing is I love helping companies become successful, which is why this election is so important to me and to all of us.
The job of presidency was investing in real estate, picking curtains and fixtures. He'd probably be the most qualified, but it's not. He's not a business person.
It seems to be antithetical to anything that they've been preaching about for decades. It's a fair question. How does the party that treats tax cuts like a religious sacrament suddenly embrace what is effectively a massive tax hike on every American consumer? It's like watching vegans suddenly promote steakhouses. The economic damage Cuban predicts doesn't stop at higher prices. He warns that if Trump's massive tariffs stay in place for years and are strictly enforced, we could face an economic disaster far worse than 2008. Remember 2008? Banks collapsing, millions losing their homes, unemployment skyrocketing. Cubans suggesting Trump's tariff plan could create something even more devastating. It's like warning that the hurricane headed your way isn't just any storm. It's worse than Katrina. This isn't just some anti-Trump rant from a political opponent. Cuban is a businessman who understands global trade. He's not against all tariffs. He's against using them as blunt weapons that will ultimately hurt Americans more than help them, and he's especially concerned about using them in ways that hurt small businesses, which are the backbone of local communities across the country. What makes this whole situation even more frustrating is that most Americans won't immediately connect their rising prices to tariff policies.
Everybody's out there saying tariffs are good. Howard Lutnick, Donald Trump has been wanting tariffs for 30 years. He's the smartest guy I know. Tariffs are going to be amazing.
Donald Trump just crushed it. And it's not just crushing people's Christmases. Those small companies that support communities, now all of a sudden, not only did their costs go up 60%.
Let me just ask you a question. Do you all know anybody who doesn't know how tariffs work? All right, I'll give you a hint. That other guy.
When your medication suddenly costs 25% more, you might blame your pharmacy or insurance company. When tractors cost triple what they used to, farmers might blame inflation or corporate greed. The economic pain will be real, but the cause might remain obscure enough for politicians to avoid accountability. Here's the thing, folks. Mark Cuban isn't just some random billionaire with a Trump grudge. He's someone who actually deals with this economic stuff every day, and he's basically calling Trump's tariff plan a financial death wish. What's especially troubling is Cuban's warning about how these tariffs will crush low-income Americans the hardest. These folks won't see any benefit from tax cuts, but will absolutely feel the pain when basic necessities like food and clothing suddenly cost more. The real question is, will voters make the connection between empty wallets and Trump's policies? Or will they just blame whoever's sitting in the Oval Office when everything gets more expensive?